Good morning, everybody. Okay, so we've been reading the Ānāpānasati Sutta. This is Sutta number 118 in the middle-length discourses. And this is the Sutta on mindfulness of breathing. Okay, and so far in the sequence on mindfulness of breathing, we've covered what I call the basic step, or the foundation, which is in paragraph 17. That is, having sat down, crossed the legs, set the body erect, and set up mindfulness in front of him. Ever mindful, he breathes in. Mindful, he breathes out. So that is really, you could say, the foundation or basis for the whole practice of mindfulness of breathing. I just wanted to say something. I don't think I spoke last week about this expression, establish mindfulness in front of him, which in Pali it's parimukkhang satting upatapetva. And the key word here is parimukkhang. So the word mukkhang by itself can mean the face or the mouth, more specifically the mouth. And the prefix pari gives the sense of around. So when you take parimukkhang together, literally it would have the sense of around the face or around the mouth. And so this becomes the basis in the commentaries for the statement that when you set up or practice mindfulness of breathing, you set up the mindfulness around the nostrils or on the upper lip, just above the mouth. Years ago I had investigated this expression, and I found that it seems to be used in a sense that seems to be used sometimes in such a way that it should not be taken too literally. So it could be taken simply as setting up mindfulness without indicating a specific place. But because if it's taken literally, it indicates around the mouth, therefore the commentators say that when you practice mindfulness and breathing, the attention should be fixed around the nostrils, the upper lip, wherever one feels the impact of the breath coming in or going out. But I know teachers who teach mindfulness of breathing without focusing the breath, but without focusing mindfulness on the breath in that specific place. Even I remember hearing a recording of Ajahn Brahmavamso, who's a great advocate of mindfulness and breathing, and he said to follow the breath wherever one could feel most distinctly and clearly the motion of the body that's connected with breathing in and breathing out. And so though I used to take the expression quite literally, now I take sort of broader interpretation. I don't know about Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. Does he ever specify a particular place to observe the breath? No, he just says be aware of the breath. Does he give choices of here? He doesn't mention any place, just be aware of the breathing. Okay, so now we come to the new section. So here we have the text says, he trains thus, I shall breathe in, experiencing rapture. He trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing rapture. Then let's take the next thus, I shall breathe in experiencing pleasure. He trains thus, I shall breathe out experiencing pleasure. Now the two key words in these two steps of mindfulness of breathing Piti pati samvedi and sukha pati samvedi. And now, if you're familiar with the formula for the first jhana, you know that what's emphasized in the formula for the first jhana is precisely these two qualities of piti and sukha. For example, if you look at the formula for the first jhana, let's see. For example, on page 275, paragraph 19, it speaks about how the meditator abandons the five hindrances and enters and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. So what is being indicated in these two steps or phases of mindfulness of breathing is the arising of these two sort of powerful emotive or felt qualities, which will eventually, when developed to a certain sufficient degree of strength, will become the dominant factors in the first jhana. Is the recording okay?
The recording is okay. It's a low humming noise.
Coming from the device?
Not sure, maybe the frequency.
Okay, now there's a difference between piti or rapture and sukha, in that piti, in terms of a technical classification, piti or rapture is assigned, of the scheme of the five aggregates. Piti or rapture is assigned to the aggregate of mental formations or volitional formations. So it's not actually a feeling, though it seems to be very closely associated with feelings, particularly with sukha. And so the word piti, it has various nuances, different translations, sometimes joy, elation, upliftment, exhilaration. Even in its stronger degree, we might render it as ecstasy. I can use that word without seeing flashing colors and and piti, rapture, is a somewhat coarser quality than sukha. Sukha, or pleasure, belongs to the five aggregate. It belongs to the aggregate of feelings. So pleasure is one of the feelings of the three types: pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neutral feeling. So sukha is the pleasant feeling. And whenever rapture arises, it's always accompanied by pleasant feeling. And so it's a bit difficult to distinguish the two. In order to distinguish the two, one has to be able to inspect the state of mind and see what is piti, what is this rapture, this uplifting, exhilarating quality, and what is the pleasure. Hard to define pleasure, but it's simply a pleasant feeling. And so with continued practice, one can distinguish the difference between piti, rapture, and sukha, pleasure. And in fact, as the practice continues, even though you see in the earlier stages, disturbances, the obstacles, the hindrances start to subside, then they come up together. The experience of rapture and pleasure. But as one continues with the practice, then the rapture becomes more refined, it sort of settles down. And so then the pleasure becomes more prominent, and then one can distinguish the pleasure. Now what seems to me to be interesting, the way the practice is formulated in the sutta, we have to remember that this is still mindfulness of breathing, and so the attention, at least in my understanding, should still be focused upon the in and out breath. It doesn't say that one becomes aware or focuses on rapture or focuses on pleasure, but it says, what? I shall breathe in experiencing rapture. I shall breathe out experiencing rapture. I shall breathe in experiencing pleasure. I shall breathe out experiencing pleasure. And so it continues to, I think the focus point of the training is to continue to be mindful of the breath. That is the sense that he trains thus. One is continuing to be mindful of the breath. But as the piti arises, then one knows one is experiencing piti, or rapture. As the pleasure arises, one knows one is experiencing the pleasure. But one still keeps the focus on the breath. Okay, the next step is I shall breathe in experiencing the mental formation. Let's take the next two steps together. I shall breathe in experiencing the mental formation. I shall breathe out experiencing the mental formation. And then I shall breathe in tranquilizing the mental formation. I shall breathe out tranquilizing the mental formation. Now here we have the expression mental formation, which in Pali is citta sankhara. Now usually, in other contexts, citta sankhara refers to volitional activities of the mind which are creating karma, particularly in the formula of dependent origination. But here, it has a different sense, which again is indicated by Sutta number 44. This is page 399, where it says that perception and feeling are the mental formation. And the reason given, this is in section 15, and then the reason why perception and feeling are the mental formation is that perception and feeling are mental. They are states bound up with the mind. So since here we've been concerned with rapture and pleasure, You could say that the mental formation, since it's feeling and perception, here probably the emphasis is on feeling. It's a little bit of a puzzle. If pleasure is a feeling, then what's the difference between experiencing pleasure and experiencing the mental formation? And I don't have a definite answer to this, but just a sort of speculation or conjecture, maybe two ways to interpret this. One is to take it that in the second step, one is focusing upon the experience of pleasure as pleasure, whereas in the third step, though one is experiencing pleasure, or it could be pain or whatever feeling arises, one is seeing that feeling just as a feeling. One is not sort of getting carried away by the particular tone of that experience, whether it be pleasant, painful, or neutral. The second interpretation is that here we could say that mental formation has a wider meaning, even though in that sutta it's perception and feeling, but here we might say that it could be like the whole bundle of mental factors that are being experienced in the meditative process. So that is really difficult to be experiencing like a whole bundle of mental factors at the same time. I'm inclined to go with taking it in this narrower sense of feeling, but now one is just recognizing it as a feeling as one breathes in and breathes out. And as one goes on mindfully breathing in and out, then the mental formation is becoming more tranquil and more refined. Because the body is becoming more tranquil, more refined. In the previous passage we had, I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the bodily formation. I shall breathe out, tranquilizing the bodily formation. Here we have, I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the mental formation. I shall breathe out, tranquilizing the mental formation. So here, it's a kind of consequence of the mindful attention to out breathing, both the activities of the body, whatever kind of neurological and muscular processes there are, become subtler, more tranquil, and also the mental activities become subtler and more tranquil. And so even though it says one trains thus tranquilizing, one's trains thus tranquilizing, but the way it's understood, one doesn't make a deliberate effort to tranquilize the mental formation, but the deliberate effort, the training, is to be mindful of the breath. But as one is mindful of the breath, as the breath becomes subtler, quieter, more tranquil, then the mental activities will also become subtler and more tranquil.